Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. My wife snatched her coat at 11:47 and headed for the door. My name is Mark and I am 36. I remember my hands already sticky from soda on the counter. We were 11 minutes from the ball dropping on live TV. I watched her fingers close around the keys like they were a lifeline. "Where are you going now?" My voice cracked on the last word, and I hated that. The kids were on the couch behind me counting fake fireworks. She avoided my eyes and kept digging in her bag. Right there I felt that small wrong note under my ribs. "There's a problem at the office." She flipped her hair back and finally looked at me. "Servers are down and nobody else is answering their phone." She said it fast like a script she already rehearsed earlier. If this was a real emergency, you would hear it in the silence. I glanced at the clock over her shoulder and did the math. 11 minutes to midnight, but apparently the job could not wait. "We can call someone else and they can deal with it." I spoke low because I could feel the kids listening hard. She shook her head with that impatient twitch I had started to dread. "You know they always call me for these things." Her keys jingled against the door like a dare. "If I do not go now, it gets worse for everyone." I stepped closer and lowered my voice until it almost broke. "We promised the kids you would be here for the countdown." Her daughter popped up on the back of the couch. "Mom, are you coming to yell 10 with us?" She bounced in place with a plastic tiara half crooked. For a second my wife froze like that finally hit her. Then she crouched fast and kissed her cheek like a bandage. "Of course I will yell from the car and you will hear me." She forced a laugh that sounded like it hurt on the way out. "Work just needs me a minute and then I come right back." Our daughter nodded because kids believe the first story they get. I stared at both of them and felt something sour in my throat. My son did not move from his blanket fortress on the couch. "Why did they wait all day to call you now?" He kept his eyes on the screen, but his jaw was tight. He was old enough to see through people, and that scared me. I wanted to answer him, but I also wanted to keep the illusion. "Buddy, it happens like that sometimes, and it is annoying." I ruffled his hair and he pulled away without looking up. "Mom will be back soon and we will do our own celebration." Even as I said it, I knew I was selling air. That is the night I really heard my own voice lie for her. I turned back to my wife and tried one more time. "Text your boss and tell them you come after midnight." I could feel my pulse in my neck like a drum. "They can survive 1 hour without you on New Year's Eve." She exhaled once and it came out as a sharp laugh. "You do not get how this works at all." Her eyes flashed and then softened like she saw herself. "If I say no now, it follows me all year." She touched my arm like that made the sentence less brutal. In reality, it just pinned me in place while she unlocked the door. The cold air rushed in and slapped my bare ankles. She stepped over a pile of toy blocks and nearly slipped. I reached out on reflex and caught her elbow mid-stumble. For a second our faces were inches apart and very empty. I could not remember the last time she looked genuinely happy with me. "I will be fast, I promise, just keep them up." She kissed me quick on the corner of my mouth. It landed like a thank you note, not like a New Year kiss. I smelled perfume that did not feel like a work thing. Later that detail would circle my brain like a buzzing fly. Then she was out on the driveway fumbling with the car. The kids shouted goodbyes from the couch and waved their cups. I stood in the doorway barefoot and watched brake lights flare. Her hand lifted in a quick wave through the window, then dropped. The car rolled away while the TV in the living room counted down. I closed the door and leaned my forehead against the wood. For a few seconds I thought about calling her bluff. I could have locked the deadbolt and made her talk. Instead I turned back to the kids and raised my voice. "All right, we are doing the biggest countdown on this street." They cheered at that because they still had sugar in their veins. Our daughter hopped down and grabbed my wrist like a rope. "Turn it louder, I want to hear the people in New York." I cranked the volume and the room filled with strangers screaming. The noise helped cover the silence in the hallway behind me. The camera on the TV showed the crowd jammed together in Times Square. Everyone pressed against everyone, and no one seemed alone at all. My son slid closer and leaned his shoulder against my side. "Is Mom texting you yet? I do not see your phone light." He watched my face like the answer was written right there. I pulled my phone from my pocket and checked the screen. Nothing from her, just a notification from some store Sal. Hey. She is probably driving and being careful, and that is good. I forced a small laugh and typed a quick message anyway. Almost midnight, traffic must be wild. I wrote, text me when you get there. The numbers on the screen jumped to 30 and the crowd roared. My daughter started shouting along and both kids pointed at the TV. I tried to match their volume, but it sounded wrong in my ears. Every second stretched while I waited for her name to appear. I still counted with them because what else could I do? 10, 9, 8. My son's voice cracked and my daughter grabbed my sleeve. I yelled the numbers too and tried not to look at the door. 3, 2, 1. The ball dropped and the crowd exploded and confetti filled the screen. On our couch, my kids screamed and wrapped their arms around my waist. Hug piled. My daughter launched herself onto my lap and my son followed. I squeezed them both and kissed their hair and pretended this was enough. Happy New Year, monsters, we made it to another one alive. I held that moment way too tight because someone else did not. The TV cut to people kissing under falling paper and flashing signs. My phone buzzed in my hand and my heart jumped like crazy. A text popped up from her number right on cue. Happy New Year, she wrote with 4 random emojis and nothing else. No picture, no call, no joke, just a dry line on a bright screen. Is that Mom? Let me see. Our daughter tried to grab the phone from my hand. She says Happy New Year and she loves you like crazy. I added that last part without even blinking at myself. If lying was a sport, I would have taken the trophy that night. Our son watched me again and his mouth pressed into a line. Why did she not FaceTime us like Uncle Dave did? He picked at the edge of the cushion with restless fingers. Her work might be loud and she does not want to lose connection. Even as I said it, I heard how weak it sounded in the air. We stayed on the couch for another minute and watched strangers kiss. Then I shut off the volume because I could not stand the cheering. All right, crew, bedtime before you turn into actual goblins. They groaned in perfect sync and dragged their feet down the hallway. Behind them, I caught my reflection in the dark TV and barely recognized the guy. I tucked my daughter in first and she clung to my wrist. Tell Mom to wake me up when she comes back. She looked dead serious, like this was a contract between us. I will try, but you know she might be exhausted from helping. I promised something I had no way to control and felt it immediately. My son lay on his side scrolling some game on his tablet. He locked the screen when I stepped inside his room without a word. You good man? I sat on the edge of his bed and waited. He stared at the wall for a second before answering. I just thought this year would be different. His voice stayed flat, but his eyes were bright. You and Mom said we would start new stuff together tonight. He shrugged and pulled the blanket up over his shoulders slowly. It is fine, I guess I get it, jobs are more important. That line hit me harder than any fight we ever had. I do not think work is more important than you, not ever. I try to catch his gaze and hold it. Sometimes adults make dumb choices and hide behind words. That last sentence slipped out before I could yank it back. He frowned at me like he heard something deeper there. So is this one of those dumb choices? His question hung between us longer than it should have. I do not know yet, but I really hope not. I kissed his forehead and turned off the light before he saw my face. Back in the living room, the countdown was looping on replay. I dropped onto the couch and checked my phone again. Still no missed call, no new message, no small explanation. I typed another text and erased it 3 different times. Every version made me sound either clingy or angry or both. Finally, I settled on something short and too calm. Everything okay? Did you get there safe? I hit send and watched the blue bubble float away. The dots never showed up and the screen stayed empty. My chest felt tight in that stupid way stress makes it. I could have opened her cloud account or checked her location. I knew the passwords and I knew the apps and tricks. Instead, I placed the phone face down on the coffee table. I told myself trust means not turning into a detective on New Year's. Now I know sometimes trust is just fear in a nicer jacket. Minutes blurred into an hour while the TV played background noise. I cleaned spilled juice and stepped on plastic crowns and cursed quietly. The clock crawled past 1 and the house settled into that deep quiet. I kept listening for her car in the driveway like a dog. The longer it stayed silent, the louder my thoughts started to shout. That was the first night I realized something huge had shifted. Not because she left, but because I let it slide. I smoothed the couch cushions and turned off the lights and waited. I acted like this was a weird one-time blip we would fix. I had no idea it was the opening scene of the real story. Her key scraped the lock just after sunrise and my eyes snapped open. I lay stiff on the couch with my neck aching in protest. I had meant to wait an hour, then give up and go to bed. Instead, I had passed out with the TV still muttering into the dark. That tiny metal sound yanked me awake harder than any alarm ever did. The door opened a crack and she slipped through sideways on bare feet. She eased it shut with her shoulder and clutched her shoes in one hand. Her dress was wrinkled to hell and one strap hung too low. She halted when she realized I was upright and tracking her every move. For a second, we just stared like two strangers who bumped hips in a hallway. "What time is it right now?" The question came out slower than my heartbeat and way too even. She glanced at her watch, then at the dark window behind me without answering. "Too late," she muttered and dropped her bag near the wall with a dull thud. It was already morning, yet she acted like nothing out of the ordinary had happened. She moved toward me across the room and tried a tired, uneven smile. Traffic was insane and the whole mess took forever to clean up. Her fingers hovered near my shoulder like we were partners after a rough shift. I leaned away just enough that her hand found empty air instead. That tiny dodge told both of us this was not just about exhaustion anymore. She drifted past me into the hallway and called out for the kids once. No answer came because they were still out cold from our late non-celebration. She peeked into their rooms anyway, like she needed them awake to complete her act. Then she turned back with that extra bright hostess grin that always meant trouble. "Let them sleep a bit longer, we will do something special later," she announced. I followed her into the kitchen and watched her grab a glass with shaky fingers. She filled it and drank fast enough that water dripped down her chin. "Rough night for a network outage?" I asked while leaning against the counter. "It got complicated fast," she replied and focused hard on the sink instead of me. In that small pause, I felt the distance between us stretch like something fraying. "They dumped everything on my lap," she went on a little too quickly. "Everyone bilayed and I had to handle 5 disasters at the same time." She took another gulp and skipped every concrete detail that could ever be checked. If the story were solid, it should have come with real names and times. All I heard was a messy blur dressed up as heroic sacrifice and duty. Before I could press further, our daughter shuffled in, rubbing her eyes with fists. "You came back," she blurted and slammed into my wife like a happy magnet. The tightness in my jaw loosened for half a second, then snapped right back. My wife dropped to her knees and covered our kid in kisses and loud affection. Watching her overdo the welcome lit a fresh question in my head about guilt. Our son appeared next, leaning in the doorway and measuring her with a steady stare. "You missed the countdown," he told her, and his voice stayed flat the whole time. She flinched, then smoothed his hair like that simple touch could rewrite the night. "I know, and I hated that. I really did. I owed them at work," she answered. He slipped out from under her hand, and the look he threw at me burned. She started tossing out huge promises almost immediately, like she needed to fill space. "Tonight we will celebrate for real," she said. "We can play games and stay up late. We will do our own countdown, just us, and ours will actually be better anyway." The harder she sold it, the more my son folded inward and went quiet. I stood there listening and realized I was not jumping in to back her this time. After breakfast, she dragged herself down the hall toward the shower and slammed the door. The sound echoed all the way through the house, and my shoulders dropped an inch. Our daughter drew hearts on a scrap of paper and carefully wrote "Mom" above them. She taped it crooked on the bedroom door so it would be seen first thing. That cheerful little sign made my stomach twist because I already doubted its audience. Our son slumped beside me on the couch and stared at the blank TV screen. "Is she really going to still be at that job next year?" he asked. He was not talking about her paycheck, he meant New Year's with us and without. I told him she was just worn down from dealing with stuff through the night. Even while I said it, I watched his eyes sharpen like he was filing every excuse away. She eventually came out wearing loungewear and an exaggerated, relaxed expression nailed in place. "I'm going to crash for a little while," she mumbled and brushed past without slowing down. She barely glanced at her phone beside the bed before dropping onto the mattress. I read in the doorway long enough to wonder who she had truly spent midnight with. Then I pulled the door almost shut because I did not trust what my face was showing. In the quiet that followed, the kids argued over which movie to start first. I settled it on autopilot and stacked dishes into the sink without really seeing them. My own phone vibrated on the counter and flashed a small banking alert banner. That sound barely registered at first, and I almost swiped it away from habit. Then I saw the words "unusual activity" on the screen and my finger stopped cold. When I opened the notification, the list of charges spilled out in order. One line glared back at me from the center of the screen immediately. A charge from a hotel lounge downtown, time stamped a few minutes after midnight. The amount was not huge, but there was a note about 2 guests. Heat rushed up my neck while my thumb hovered above the transaction like it might bite. I tapped for details and a neat little map popped up under the name. The place sat nowhere near her office and nowhere near any route she ever used. I knew that area from a work thing months earlier, full of bars and dates. My pulse thudded in an ugly, uneven way that made my hands feel unreliable. In that moment, I honestly wished for a banking glitch instead of a marital one. I could have closed the app and pretended my eyes misread everything somehow. Instead, I scrolled through the timeline of charges for that whole night in order. A rideshare fare from our address to that same block just before 11:30. Another ride back around 4 in the morning, which matched the sound of her key. Every neat little number stacked on the next until it felt heavier than simple doubt. Curiosity edged past fear, and I checked her recent call history on my device. I half expected to see work contacts all over the top of the list. What I saw instead were quick repeated calls to the same unknown cell number. I saved the digits under a blank entry, just a single question mark for now. Then I locked my own screen because my son wandered in holding a game controller. "Want to play with us?" he asked while trying to sound casual and grown. "Yeah, why not?" I answered and forced my voice to land somewhere near normal. We spent the next half hour chasing points on the television while my head raced elsewhere. Every time the controller buzzed in my hand, my chest felt like it might split. I kept losing track of the score and he kept checking my profile instead of the game. When the round ended, he tossed the controller onto the cushion between us slowly. "You and Mom going to argue about last night later?" he asked more softly. I swallowed hard enough that it hurt and stared down the hallway instead of at him. "I think we need to talk and figure out what actually went on," I managed. That answer tasted sharp because deep down I already had a pretty clear picture forming. While the kids loaded another movie, I retreated to the kitchen again alone. I opened my notes app and started a fresh document with clumsy, unsteady fingers. The first title I typed looked pathetic, just 3 words, "Am I overreacting?" I stared at that for a long beat, then erased it in one swipe. New Year timeline replaced it, and I hit save like I was filing evidence. I wrote down the time she walked out and the emergency line she threw at me. Next, I added the banking alert, the lounge name, and that quiet 2-guest detail. Then I logged the return ride and the moment I heard her sliding through the door. Each bullet looked harmless sitting alone, yet together they formed a bent, ugly pattern. I realized once this list existed, I could not crawl back into pretending ever again. I locked my phone and leaned against the counter, feeling the weight of that decision. Upstairs, the bed frame creaked, and she shifted in her sleep, turning over once more. Down the hall, my daughter laughed at something on the screen and clapped for no reason. The whole place sounded perfectly ordinary on the surface, while my trust quietly fractured underneath it. And the worst part is that back then, I still hoped those numbers were lying somehow. Her phone buzzed on the counter while the shower roared down the hall. I froze halfway to the fridge and watched the screen light up twice. The kids were in the other room, arguing over who cheated at their game. Another vibration hit the surface and the phone nudged closer to the edge. I knew if I picked it up, everything might change in one swipe. A preview flashed across the glass before it dimmed again and vanished. I only caught 3 words and an emoji, but they punched anyway. Still thinking about last night, followed by a little red heart. Not a calendar reminder, not a group chat, not anything neutral. I stood there with my hand hovering like a thief in my own kitchen. "Can we start another round?" my son yelled from the living room. "Hold on a second," I called back while forcing my tea. "One light." My heart hammered loud enough that I thought he might hear it. "Grab a snack and give me a minute, I need to check something." I waited for their footsteps to move away before I reached for her phone. It felt heavier than usual, which is ridiculous, but that is how it landed. Face recognition did not trigger from the angle, so the lock screen stayed stubborn. I tapped the digits I had watched her use 1,000 casual times before. The screen slid open so easily that for one crazy second I almost laughed. I guess she never imagined the idiot watching cartoons would also know her password. The message thread sat right at the top with a simple first name. No company tag, no business label, just a man's name and a tiny heart. I pressed it and the chat history opened like a trapdoor under my feet. A fresh line waited at the bottom, still marked as no response from her. "Hope your new year started as good as mine did with you." My throat tightened and my palms went slick instantly. I scrolled up an inch and my eyes caught another line. "You sneaking out during the family countdown was insanity, but I am not complaining." I gripped the counter with my free hand so I would not drop the phone. Seeing it written plain like that hit way harder than any bank notification. Higher in the thread, he had sent a picture from above a crowded street. He wrote, "All these people cheering, and you were downstairs with him instead." Under that she replied, "They will live, he had the kids, I had you." I stared at those 2 sentences until the words blurred around the edges. Reading my role reduced to babysitter and background prop made my stomach roll. I kept sliding up because apparently I wanted to hurt myself thoroughly. One text from her read, "Still brushing glitter off my legs from your place." His answer came back, "Worth it to have you riding me into the new year." My jaw locked hard enough that it actually ached down into my neck. I remember thinking, this is no harmless flirting, this is a whole secret life. There were jokes about me sprinkled through the conversation like little landmines. Did he really believe that server story? He typed, followed by laughing emojis. He bought it like always. He hates my job, so he assumed the worst. I could see her saying that with a tired shrug and maybe an eye roll. That vision hurt more than the sexual parts because it turned me into a punchline. One older entry grabbed my attention and refused to let go. "Next time I want you here before midnight, not running late from your house." She had answered, "I will make something up earlier so I can leave sooner." No confusion, no hesitation, just planning around ditching us without any guilt. In that moment, I stopped wondering if I had misread anything about that night. I snapped out of the spiral long enough to remember she was still showering. Hot water pounded the pipes and steam curled under the bathroom door. I checked the time and realized I had been reading for several minutes straight. If she walked out right then, I would be standing here holding her unlocked phone. That visual alone kicked me into a different gear entirely. I started snapping screenshots with quick jerky taps one after another. Every line that mentioned leaving home or the hotel or the kids got captured. My hands shook so badly that I almost shut the app twice by accident. I opened my email and attached the images to a message addressed to myself. A new account I had set up years earlier for receipts suddenly had a darker purpose. For the subject line, I typed 3 cold words. "Messages from tonight, nothing more, nothing less." I hit send and watched the spinning icon do its slow, depressing loop. When the little confirmation flashed, I felt a strange wave of calm roll through. If she wiped her phone later, I would still have their dirty highlight reel. The pipes groaned and the shower hissed off all at once. My body jolted like someone fired a gun in the hallway. I scrambled back to the chat and scrolled to the very top again. I tapped out a neutral reply from her account before I could overthink it. "Busy day, catching up at home, talk later," I wrote, then hit send. Then I backed out to the main screen and forced my breathing slower. I cleared the app history and set the phone exactly where it had been. Angle matched distance from the edge match screen facing up just like before. By the time the bathroom door clicked open, I was at the sink rinsing a cup. From the outside, I probably looked like any tired husband killing time on a Sunday. She padded into the kitchen in a fresh outfit and twisted her hair up. "You been out here long?" she asked while reaching for the phone automatically. "Kids want lunch," I answered and kept my eyes on the faucet instead of her. Her gaze flicked to the screen when she woke it, but nothing unusual waited there. She smiled to herself when she saw the new message from him, which nearly made me joke. I should really turn off work notifications today," she muttered. She slid the device into her pocket like it had never left her side. Every casual movement felt staged now, even if it was not. I poured coffee into her favorite mug because muscle memory is cruel. She wrapped both hands around it and leaned against the counter, breathing deep. "Thank you," she murmured and brushed her arm against mine for a second. "You good?" I asked and watched her reaction like a lie detector. "Just wiped out from everything this week," she replied with another heavy exhale. That line rang in my ears because I knew what everything actually meant now. The disconnect between her words and my new knowledge felt like standing on cracked ice. I tested the surface with one more careful step. "Your boss must be thrilled you saved the night for them," I said. She nodded slowly and looked away toward the doorway where the kids were yelling again. "They would have been screwed without me, so yeah, they appreciated it," she answered. Hearing her double down that hard almost impressed me in the worst possible way. "Do you ever think maybe they depend on you a little too much?" I asked. She stiffened just enough for me to catch it before she smoothed her posture. "If I do not step up, things fall apart over there," she replied sharply. "And then everyone pays for it, including us, so I do what I have to do." She took a long swallow of coffee like she needed something to hide behind. I nearly threw the chat log in her face right then. The words sat on my tongue, forming into questions I wanted to scream. Who is he? How long? How many nights like that? Instead, I swallowed them all down because the kids started chanting for food. I was not ready for our whole world to explode in the next 5 minutes. So I played along for the rest of that afternoon like a half-awake actor. We made sandwiches and pretended to plan a redo celebration for later. She joked with the kids and twirled our daughter around in the hallway. Every laugh from her sounded a little too bright once I knew the backstage script. If you have ever smiled at someone while holding their betrayal in your pocket, you know the taste. When she stepped outside to take a quick call from the office, I watched through the window. Her mouth moved fast, her free hand gesturing in the empty air. Whatever he said made her bite her lip and glance back toward the house. I could not hear anything, yet I heard enough just from the way she shifted her weight. That was the moment I decided this would not stay a private wound forever. Later that night, after everyone finally crashed, I opened my laptop in the dark. I dug into that email account and downloaded every screenshot onto a hidden folder. Each file name auto-filled with pointless numbers that suddenly felt like exhibit labels. I sat there reviewing them one by one while the house rested around me. What had started as a vague suspicion now had timestamps, pet names, and plans for next time. I dropped his number into the search bar and hit enter. The laptop thought for a second, then a full name popped up. Same area as us, same phone provider, same little profile thumbnail. I clicked before I could talk myself out of it. If this pulled up a stranger, at least I could stop inventing monsters. His page loaded with a big grin and a gold band on his finger. First picture at the top showed him holding 2 small kids at a park. His arm wrapped around a woman leaning into him like they were solid. My stomach lurched because I knew that posture from old photos of us. Somewhere in the background, my daughter laughed at something on TV, and it cut through me. Her name was tagged on every family post like a stamp. I hovered over it, then clicked, then hesitated on her profile picture. She looked normal in the best way, tired, happy eyes, and a messy ponytail. I stared at her and thought, do you have any clue who he kissed at midnight? That question felt heavy enough to knock my hand off the mouse. I scrolled his feed backward, looking for anything that might explain this. Holiday photos, birthday candles, goofy group selfies with what looked like relatives. Nothing screamed secret player, nothing warned me he was the guy from those messages. If anything, he looked like the sort of man coaches Little League and grills on weekends. That realization pissed me off more than if he had looked like a walking red flag. Then a post from a few weeks earlier stopped me dead. His wife had written, "So proud of how hard you work for us." He replied right under it, "Everything I do is for this family." My finger hovered over the screen like I wanted to tap the word family off. It hit me that while he wrote that, he was also texting hotel plans with my wife. I opened her profile next and scanned through her public posts. No sign of trouble, just kid milestones and date nights and inside jokes. There was one shot of them at a restaurant, his hand on her knee under the table. The caption read, "Married my best friend and still crushing on him." Reading that while knowing what he did on New Year's made my jaw clench so hard it hurt. I backed out and stared at the message button below her face. My thumb hovered over it while my heart slammed around like it wanted out. If I reached out, I would light a match in their house as well as mine. If I stayed quiet, I would be helping cover the mess for both of them. I stood in that fork for longer than I want to admit now. I clicked the button and a blank chat window appeared waiting. The cursor blinked at me, tiny and obnoxious, like it was tapping its foot. I typed, "Hi, we do not know each other, but I think we should talk." Then I erased it because it sounded fake and like a scam. Starting a war through social media needed fewer polite words, not more. "Are you free to see something about your husband right now?" That is what I finally left on the first line. Under it, I attached 3 screenshots from the worst part of the thread. The one about her skipping the family moment, the hotel joke, the glitter comment. My hand shook when I tapped send and I almost dropped the phone. The message shot off and the status changed to delivered. Nothing else happened for a full minute, which felt like an hour stretched out. I stared so long my screen dimmed and locked itself. I woke it up again and saw no new bubble, no dots, nothing at all. My chest felt tight, like I had yelled into a void that might swallow me. I forced myself to put the phone down on the table. "Anybody hungry?" I called out and tried to sound normal. The kids came running, arguing about toppings and still high on leftover sugar. I moved around the kitchen on autopilot, hands working while my brain replayed that chat. Every buzz from some random app made me flinch like a guilty teenager. Halfway through making plates, my phone finally vibrated twice in a row. I wiped my fingers on a dish towel and grabbed it like a lifeline. Her reply was short, no greeting, no emoji, just straight panic. "Who is this? Where did you get these?" I stared at the words until my pulse settled enough to type back. "I am married to the woman he met at that hotel," I wrote. My thumb hovered, then I added, "I can prove it and I am not asking for money." That last part felt necessary because the whole thing already sounded like a trap. There was a long pause, then another message from her popped up. "Call me now," followed by her number. I told the kids I needed to make a work call and stepped outside. The air bit at my face and cleared my head a little. I dialed and it rang twice before someone sucked in a breath on the other end. "Hello," she said, voice tight like she was trying not to break yet. For a second I almost hung up because I realized I was about to wreck her world. "I am the guy whose wife walked out right before midnight," I started. She went quiet, then said, "The server emergency thing." Hearing that phrase from her mouth made my stomach twist into something sharp. "So he used the same story with you?" I asked, already knowing the answer. I heard paper rustle like she was bracing herself against the counter. "He told me they had to fix something or the company would lose clients." Her tone changed on the word fix like it tasted sour now. "He left around 10:30 and got back close to 4. I closed my eyes because those times matched my banking alerts exactly. "You checked your statements too," I guessed, though it came out like a statement. "Not that night," she said, voice dropping. "Today after I saw your pictures, I went straight to the card app." She drew in a shaky breath and continued, "The charge is there, same hotel bar." I leaned against the house because my legs felt a little unreliable. Hearing another person confirm it locked everything in place whether I liked it or not. We started trading specifics like 2 people comparing scars. She read the amount on their tab. I told her it matched ours down to the cent. I told her about the rideshare times. She told me the return trip hit right before dawn. Each detail clicked into the next like some ugly puzzle we never wanted to solve. By the third match, we both went silent for a few seconds, just listening to each other breathe. "How long has this been going on?" she asked finally. I opened the folder on my laptop with the screenshots and scrolled fast. The earliest flirty message with his name was dated months back. There were references to last time and our usual spot sprinkled all through. "I can see at least several months," I said, wishing it was only one night. She cursed under her breath, raw and not for show. I thought he was just more tired lately, taking on projects, trying to impress people. Her voice cracked on the word tired, and she cleared her throat. Guess I was the idiot cheering for overtime while he was booking rooms. I winced because there it was, my own face reflected in her sentence. "This is going to destroy my kids," she whispered. I heard a chair scrape and something clatter as she moved around. "They adore their father, they think he can do nothing wrong." I pictured her 2 children from that park photo, and my chest went tight again. For them, I was about to become the stranger who detonated their dad. "You are not the one who did this," I told her. The words sounded flat because I did not fully believe them about myself either. "When did you start feeling like something was off?" I asked instead. "Last summer he started working late on Thursdays," she replied after a beat. There was always some excuse, some crisis, some person only he could help. I flipped back through the conversation log while she talked. Sure enough, there were messages from him every Thursday, full of hotel emojis. They joked about thirsty Thursdays in one of them, and I swallowed hard. None of that was about stress relief at the office, no matter what they called it. I realized we were both mapping different pieces of the same rotten pattern. "What are you planning to do?" she asked suddenly. The question hit me because I had been avoiding it on purpose. Part of me wanted to forward everything to his work and burn it all down. Another part pictured my kids crying in some therapist's office years later. "I know I have to confront her, I just do not know when yet," I said. "I cannot pretend I did not see those messages," she answered. There was steel under the hurt now, thin but definitely there. "I will talk to him tonight when the kids are asleep, I owe them at least that." Her voice shook on the word "oh," and she let it hang. I understood exactly what she meant, because I felt like I owed mine something too. We agreed to share anything new that might come up in the next days. She wanted copies of the screenshots, and I promised to send them after we hung up. In return, she offered to send pictures of receipts, calendars, anything that could matter. We were strangers plotting around 2 people who had turned us into side characters. It felt both necessary and a little dirty, which I guess fits what they did to us. "Do you hate her?" she asked quietly at the end. The question caught me off guard, like she had nudged a bruise. "I want to," I answered, staring at the ground. "But we have children together, and my brain keeps trying to bargain for them." Saying that out loud made me feel weak and human at the same time. "I get it," she replied, then gave a short, bitter laugh. I spent the whole afternoon hoping there was some innocent explanation too. Her breath hitched, then steadied. "Now I know better, so I need to act like it." I heard a door close on her side of the line, followed by a muffled shout. Someone in her house was calling for her, and suddenly this was real in both homes. We ended the call with no neat plan, just a shared ugly truth. I stood outside a little longer, listening to my own breathing slow down. Through the window I could see my kids throwing pillows and shrieking. On my screen, his happy family photo still sat open, frozen in a perfect moment. By the time I walked back inside, I knew this was not staying a secret much longer. I laid the printed messages on the table between us. Her fork stopped halfway to her mouth and just hovered there. My hands shook a little, but my voice came out steady. "Who is he?" She looked down once, then pushed her chair back with a scrape. "What is this supposed to be?" She knew exactly what it was. That was the worst part. I could see the recognition hit before she finished the question. I tapped the picture where she joked about sneaking out before midnight. I tapped the line where he thanked her for choosing him over home. "These are from the same night you walked out on the countdown." Her eyes flicked across the page, then right back to my face. "You went through my phone." She did not deny the words, she attacked the way I found them. Do you hear yourself? This is insane control freak behavior. She folded her arms across her chest like that made her case stronger. Yeah, I checked when the math stopped adding up. I did not raise my voice, I just pushed the papers closer. You skipped being with our children at midnight to be with him. Saying it out loud made my throat tight, but I kept going. She stared at the wall behind me like the paint might offer answers. It was not serious, it was just supposed to be fun and a distraction. That word fun made something hot flare right up my spine. A distraction from what exactly? She finally met my eyes, and there was anger sitting there now. From feeling alone in this marriage all the time. From you checking out, from you treating me like a roommate. Hearing that almost made me laugh because of how backwards it sounded. You felt lonely, so you chose to sneak off with somebody else. You did not talk to me, you did not ask for change. My hand shook as I pointed to another line where they trashed me together. You went straight to mocking me with him, that is not a mistake. She opened her mouth like she had a comeback ready, then I dropped the next part. I spoke to his wife this afternoon. Whatever color she had left drained out fast, and her fingers tightened on the chair. She knows exactly where he was when you went missing from here. You went to her. Her voice cracked on her more than on the accusation about me. Do you have any idea what you have done to their family? I barked out a short laugh because that was the line that broke me. I am not the one booking rooms and sneaking out on holidays. Do not talk to me about their house when you torched ours first. My hand smacked the table and the cup rattled hard against the wood. Up the hallway I heard drawers open, which meant the kids were listening now. Our son appeared in the doorway with his shoulders stiff and eyes wide. Are you two breaking up? The way he asked it, flat and scared, cut deeper than anything on the page. My wife turned toward him too fast with some fake calm glued on. We are just having a hard talk about grown-up things, nothing you caused. He did not buy it for a second, I could see it. Go hang with your sister for a minute, please, we will come get you. He backed away slowly and kept his eyes on both of us the whole time. When he disappeared around the corner, I felt something inside me finally lock into place. I am done, I said, and my own calm surprised me. We are not patching this, we are not sweeping this under another rug. She stared at me like she did not recognize who she was arguing with anymore. We can go to counseling, we can fix this, people recover from worse. We have children, we have history, you are really going to throw everything away. Her chest rose and fell fast, and her hands shook around the back of the chair. There was fear there finally, not just outrage, and it almost pulled me off my line. You did not trip and land on him one time at some party. You built a whole secret routine and laughed about me and the kids. I cannot live in the same house with that in my face every day. My voice shook a little, but the words stayed out there between us like concrete. She pulled out a chair and sat down hard like her legs would not hold her. What does that even mean? What are you actually going to do tomorrow? For starters, you can take the guest room starting tonight, and we call a lawyer Monday. The word lawyer hung there like smoke, and finally she broke eye contact. We told the kids the next day after breakfast. Nothing dramatic, just the new reality. We are going to live in separate places for a while, I started. My daughter burst into tears so fast it knocked the air out of me. Our son just stared and asked one question that I still hear at night. Is this because she left to go work on New Year stuff? The way he hit that word work almost made me confess everything right there. This is because grown-ups made some really bad choices, I answered slowly. I watched him look from me to her, and I could see him lining things up. 3 weeks later, I carried 2 duffel bags into a small rented duplex. The silence hit hard that first night with no children asleep down the hall. I lay on a strange mattress staring at the ceiling and replayed that countdown again. Back then I had lied to myself that it was a one-off mistake. My phone buzzed and her name lit up on the screen. The other betrayed partner had become the only person who fully understood this mess. He moved into a motel, she told me, voice raw but steady now. We compared custody schedules like coworkers trading shifts, and it felt surreal as hell. The first time my children stayed over at the duplex, I cleaned like a maniac. I made their beds 3 times and rearranged the same stack of games twice. When they walked in carrying backpacks, they both froze like they were entering a hotel. "This is nice," my daughter said finally, then looked around and grabbed my hand hard. Their mother stayed in the doorway with her keys clenched and eyes shiny but dry. "Call me if they need anything," she told me, not quite meeting my gaze. "We will be fine," I answered, keeping my hand on our daughter's shoulder. When she left, our son watched her drive away without waving, and that image stuck. Months rolled by in a weird slow blur of meetings, forms, and shared weekends. One day I walked into a store and heard a clerk humming a countdown song. Displays for party hats and plastic horns were already stacked near the entrance. My chest squeezed tight because I realized another December 31st was creeping toward us. That night over pizza, my son asked where we would be when the ball dropped. "Mom says she might take us to a friend's party," he mentioned, watching me closely. "We can also do our own thing here," I answered, trying to keep it light. He chewed for a long time, then nodded like he was choosing sides in his head. When that night finally came, the kids decided to spend the evening at my place. We counted along with the broadcast, but this time the volume stayed down low. They curled up on either side of me and shouted the last numbers right into my ears. My phone sat face down on the counter, and for once I did not care who might be calling. When the clock flipped to midnight, nobody ran for the door, nobody grabbed keys. I hugged my children and felt their arms tighten around me like they meant it. Last year I had begged someone to stay, and they still chose to leave. This year I let someone go and stayed with the ones who never asked me to prove I belonged.